Well, the All-Star break is officially here. We're going to talk about the Tigers season up to this point, as well as what we can expect the rest of the way. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Tigers is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome in, welcome all, everybody. Happy Wednesday to everybody. We are going to talk about the first half, quote unquote. It's not actually the exact halfway point in the season, but it is usually the point in the year that everyone looks at as, you know, the halfway mark, and you kind of regather, you take a week off from playing ball, and you kind of assess where your team is at, how the first half of the season went, and how the rest of the way will look. So that's what we're going to do today. I think we have, we have most of the week off here. It's a good opportunity for us to really slow down and actually have some big picture conversations about really every aspect of this team. And then obviously what to expect in the second half. The trade deadline is going to be a huge talking point. We'll talk plenty about that today. And we will have an entire shows dedicated to the trade deadline as we get further along in July as well. So the Tigers are 47-50. That makes them 3 games under 500 going into, or at rather. I mean, the All-Star game was last night. We're in the latter half of the All-Star break, obviously. But they are 3 games under 500 heading into the second half of the season, or the post-All-Star break part of the season. My preseason win projection was 84 wins. They're obviously not on pace to obtain that. They are on pace, obviously, to be sub 500. So we're going to actually talk about this like we do a game, right? Like on any given day, we do what went right and what went wrong. We're going to do that just for the first half, again, quote unquote, and second half of the season here. Okay. So, because I really feel like that is like so much has gone well and so much, if not more, has gone poorly. I think that's kind of the best way to decipher, we'll say, the first half of the season here. So the biggest thing that went right, I think, is a collective group of this team, and that is the starting pitching. The Tigers go into the All-Star break with the 11th best starting pitching ERA in baseball, which doesn't sound like uber fantastic. It doesn't sound, oh my goodness, this is one of the best rotations in baseball. But 2 other stats I'm going to throw at you. Starting pitching FIP. Okay, so fielding independent pitching, it's a stat that tries to help predict what an ERA, quote unquote, should be. Now there's several stats like that. XFIP is one. There is Sierra. There's a lot of other projective, quote unquote, stats, but tries to kind of sift through and look at, okay, what is I don't even like saying what it should be, but just rather, you know, if starting pitcher has maybe been a little bit unlucky, if you will. The Tigers have the second best FIP from starters in all of baseball and have the 5th highest starting pitching WAR, according to Fangraphs WAR, which makes sense because Fangraphs WAR uses FIP rather than ERA. But regardless, that is an indictment on how good the starting pitching has been. And if we break down the individuals in that group, Jack Flaherty has turned out to be a fantastic win of a free agent signing from this front office and from Scott Harris, Jeff Greenberg, the like, anybody that was involved in that decision. That is an overwhelming success so far. Jack Flaherty had an ERA of like 6.1 or 6.14 something with Baltimore last season post-trade, and so far this year has been legitimately like a fringe all-star and one of the better starting pitchers in the American League. Now, the injury throws a little bit of a wrench into that and makes it a little bit more disappointing, and certainly throws a wrench into his value at the trade deadline, which we'll talk about again when we kind of talk about the second half of the season later on in the show. But so far in the first half, Jack Flaherty has been stellar and has absolutely, Feder, London, Nieves, who we give credit to so often, deserve so much credit for Jack Flaherty and how his season has gone as well. Reese Olson has been fantastic too. He had like a 3 or 4 start kind of hiccup there in May. And outside of that, he has been absolutely fantastic. We still talk about the fact that one of the reasons I'm super excited about Reese Olson is that not only just how well he's pitched, but the fact that I think there's still actually room to grow. I still think there's more in the tank, and there's an even higher ceiling than we've even seen. But this was a guy that, a year and a half ago, people were talking about bullpen potential, right? He's got a really good slider. He's got a pretty hard fastball. If you move to the pen, you can even get that to be a higher velocity. We'll see him in the pen, and he could be a really good reliever, but he's probably that. And now he's a fixture in this starting rotation. And in spring training, it wasn't even a guarantee that he made the team out of camp, right? And he has been so good. So that is another overwhelming success this season. And you can really, outside of Maeda, kind of just say the starting pitching as a whole has been a huge asset for this team. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, it's a lot different. And that is because the offense has not been very good. But if we're talking about players that have impressed on the offensive side of the ball, I think Riley Greene is where you have to start. We talk about it all the time. You just remove the month of May, or you put, a hand on your computer over his May stats. You go, wow, this is one of the best players in baseball. And again, I reiterate all the time, you can't do that. They play 162 games. You have to take that entire thing in as a sample, but he has been absolutely phenomenal. And the reason why I have optimism that he is just a blip in the radar is because he's been really good after it and was really good before most of May when he struggled. So I think that's more of a reflection of the type of player he is than the month of May is. Regardless, he has been stellar this year. He is an all-star this year. And, in the depths of the rebuild, right, in 2019 and 2020, in 2022, the big overarching reoccurring conversation was, if we can just wait until these young players and this young core that we have brewing in the minors comes up, we're going to be okay. And there's still a long way to go before we're deemed quote unquote okay. And before this organization is like, wow, we made it, right? This is still an under 500 baseball team. But seeing Skubal and Greene specifically, homegrown talent drafted by the organization, developed by the organization, come through and be all-star caliber players at such a young age, so early on in their careers, is beautiful. Okay. Colt Keith, I'm going to put on this side of things, and maybe that's recency bias, and maybe that's just bias of, following this kid since draft night and always being really, really high on him. But I think that it's super fair. I think if you're to decide, which side of the aisle to put him on, what went right or what went wrong currently, I think it's overwhelming that he is a part of what has gone right for the Detroit Tigers so far in 2024. We'll talk a little bit about why. We'll talk about, obviously, the hot streak lately. Then we'll get into a few more players before we talk about what has gone wrong for the team so far this season. And we will do all of that right after this. Got to talk to you all today about our friends over at Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folk in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trade can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. So join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order a plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Also going to talk to y'all again about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. So get in on all the daily action with your friends. Become a part of the Prize Picks community. Today, you can 100 times your money. You can turn $10 into $1,000. That is 100 timesing your money with as little as 4 correct picks, looking at starting pitching strikeouts, total bases for hitters, so much more here. And in the second half of the season, there's going to be so much more. So get in on all the action today over at Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, everybody, welcome back here at segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all greatly for tuning in, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will be back, of course, tomorrow. We're going to recap the rest of the draft. I figured rounds 3 through 20 are probably a lot less intriguing to people as this conversation and as yesterday's conversation. So we are going to save that for tomorrow, and then we'll preview the weekend series against the Blue Jays tomorrow as well. We're going to talk about the second half today. So let's get back into it. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. You can subscribe for free, 24/7 streaming channel over on YouTube, or check it out for free in the Amazon Fire TV channels app. So talking about Colt Keith before the break, I think it's really fair to put him on the side of things that went right in the first half. And obviously got off to a really slow start. But since, it's not just, in the last, 2 weeks, he's been really good. If you look at his numbers since the first week of May, he's been really good, like well above average league hitter, well above league average hitter, rather. And the thing that has catapulted him into an either, can I talk? Goodness. The thing that has catapulted him into another level even is the last 2 or 3 weeks. But since the beginning of May, he has been a well above league average hitter. And I think that we talk about all the time. I don't have to break down the mechanics and what I'm still looking for, etc. We talk about that all the time, but just in general, seeing him really come into his own was a huge part of the Tigers' plan this season, and seeing that actually come to fruition has been good. And shocker, not that it's all on one player, but not surprising to anyone, Colt Keith has been hitting a lot better lately, and the Tigers have been playing a lot better lately. Okay, and again, it's not all on one player. Riley Green's been, hitting a lot better than he was. A lot of the players are, but that do not get it twisted. That's not for nothing either. Carson Kelly, we were talking about whether, last winter it even made sense for the Tigers to pick up his team option, and that there was a debate there because he hit so poorly at the end of last season. And so for him to come in, be a good, solid, well above solid, actually, defensive catcher for this ball club, as well as being a legitimate, one of the better hitters on the team. And that's not saying much because this team is still not very good offensively, but he has earned that middle of the lineup type of presence that he has been getting, especially against lefties. But really, period. Jake Rogers hasn't been hitting well all season. Certainly not what we saw from him last year. So yeah, I think Carson Kelly's been a big success story for this front office as well. And then we're going to end on Wenceel Perez, who is a guy that I don't want to let recency bias or just time passing let go of the storyline that is Wenceel Perez. This dude was not on anybody's radar to be a legitimate difference maker at the major league level this year. Nobody in the media was talking about, watch out for Wenceel Perez to be an everyday starter and then have an OPS in the 700s and be a solid league average hitter for this team. Nobody. And the fact that he carved out a role for himself and has stuck and will continue to stick, he will be here throughout the end of the season, and he deserves it, I think is so impressive. Even when he came up and got off to the hot start, I was like, okay, this will fade, and then he'll go back down into the minors in a month or two. He just has continued to hit. Bat-to-ball skills, he doesn't strike out. Really, really professional hitter with a lot of confidence at the plate. I love watching him take ABs. I'm a huge fan of Wenceel Perez, and the only thing that can add to his value at this point is if it turns out he can play the infield a little bit better than he initially showed over the last 2 years. That would be the only thing that could really raise his value. But as it stands right now, Wenceel Perez, absolutely a success story so far this season. So let's then flip to what has gone wrong for the Tigers. The bullpen is where I actually want to start. The last 2 years, the bullpen has been really solid. This year, it hasn't. They're 23rd in Fangraphs WAR out of the bullpen from relievers this year. They're 18th in bullpen ERA and 22nd in bullpen strikeout rate. That last one is almost the one I care the most about. You cannot, in today's day and age of baseball, you cannot have a successful bullpen without having swing and miss stuff. You can't. There are too high leverage of situations for teams to just go out there and be like, hey, you know, put the bat on the ball here, get a ground ball here. And like, you'll always take a ground ball if the ball is hit into play. I'm not saying ground balls are bad. Obviously, that's kind of the ideal situation if you are going to put the bat on the ball. But there are objectively high leverage situations where you need a strikeout. And the Tigers don't have anybody that can do that. Not one person. Right? Andrew Chafin, higher than the rest of the team. Alex Faedo, higher than a lot of players, especially with that slider specifically. But like on a consistent basis, you don't have anybody that you're just going to go, okay, we need a strikeout here. There's a man on third and one out late in the game. We need a strikeout here. Who are we going to? Huge issue. And it's really disappointing given where the bullpen has been at the last couple of years, how much they've struggled this season. And that's even with like an ungodly month of April thrown in there, right? They were the best bullpen in baseball in April, and they're still in the bottom, 10-ish in most stats. Really a testament to how much they have struggled since the beginning of May. Offensively, I mean, we can just talk about the offense in general. It almost seems like I'm sure that my what has gone wrong is going to be a shorter list than what has gone right. That's not the case. It's just, the things that have gone wrong are way more generalized. The offense has gone wrong. And now, granted, in the month of July, they've been a lot better. And that is something that is absolutely worth pointing out and is a reason why a lot of people are starting to like have fun and have hope again. And that's awesome. Don't let me rain on your parade. You be a fan however you want to be a fan. That's always been a big thing of mine. But like this season, right, a much bigger sample size than 14 games in July. This season, they are still a bottom 7 offense in pretty much every stat. Right? Team OPS, bottom 10, WRC plus, bottom of the league, WAR, bottom of the league. Like they are in that bottom 6, 7, 8 range in a lot of team offensive categories. And that's just not going to cut it. That's just not a playoff team. That's not someone of a team of really high caliber. And we can point to a lot of individuals within that conversation. Mark Canha has been a really big disappointment, unfortunately. And that's a signing or a trade rather, I guess, that I was pretty high on and that I liked getting. I thought that was a pretty savvy move to get him. But I think it's more now of a testament to what the Brewers knew and that we didn't, right? He's an on-base machine, as Scott Harris said, going into the season. But unfortunately, the bat speed, I think, has gone down a little bit, but even if that's not, like, he just can't hit velocity, really. He's just getting bullied a lot, and there's a ton of weak contact. He has not been squaring up baseballs. His OPS since early May is in the 500s. It's not good. And for a guy who, A, was really good in April, but B, was supposed to be like one of the bigger acquisitions of this team, that's not great. And that's why the offense has struggled. And that's why we said in the winter, for as much as I liked the signing, or I keep saying signing, for as much as I liked the trade, there's no way that could be your biggest move offensively of the offseason, and it might have been. Not good. Parker Meadows, obviously another disappointing season so far. Now, I liked the changes I saw from him in the 3 games he played after coming back from the injured, or after coming back from Toledo and then getting put on the injured list. So we'll see if he's made adjustments and he is better. But this was a guy that everybody was talking about, myself included. Look, if he can even be a league average hitter, he's going to be like a 3 or 4 WAR center fielder. He's going to be so valuable on the base paths and defensively. This team is just different when Parker Meadows is good. And I think that getting him right is a huge talking point for the second half and obviously the first half. And then Kenta Maeda. Not really too much needs to be said. Obviously, he was really good in the bullpen. In the one outing we've seen him out of the pen earlier or over the weekend, rather. But unfortunately, has just been a catastrophic signing. And the 2 years for him makes it even more of a gut punch. So they're going to have to navigate their way through that. Let's talk about the big one, because there's one very clear, I think very comfortably the biggest member, if you will, on the side of things of what went wrong. We will talk about him and wrap up that conversation right after this. Got to talk to you today about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships and also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So let's get down to it. All right, the biggest member, the leader of this conversation when we're talking about for the Detroit Tigers Major League team, what has gone wrong so far this season is very clearly and obviously Spencer Torkelson. We have talked about him at length so far this season. We've talked about why he got sent down. We've talked about the mechanics he will or won't change, etc., etc. The fact of the matter is, before we get into what I want to see from this team in the second half, this team is wildly different if Spencer Torkelson is even close to what he did in the second half of last season. Wildly different. Not kind of different, not, oh, we're probably still under 500. And I'm not pinning an entire season on one player, right? I just went through a laundry list of players and reasons as to why, the first half didn't go as a lot of people expected maybe going into the season. Okay, this is not just, I'm not trying to say the season is over because of Torkelson. That's ridiculous. But when we're talking about the biggest reasons and the demotions that carried the most weight and the players that struggled, that affected the offense the most, there is no denying that Spencer Torkelson's lack of production this season is toward the top of the list. And he hasn't been tearing it up in Toledo either, which is wildly concerning. And when we talk about the future of Torque, look, man, first basemen are easy to get in the offseason. And I just can't imagine that the plan going forward after what we've seen this year is going to be Torkelson is penned in, right, with Sharpie and permanent ink, going to be the first baseman of the future of this team. Now, we'll have much more of a breakdown as the season goes along. We'll see if he comes back up. We'll talk about it a ton in the winter, right? I'm not declaring anything today. I think it's again, with how easy it is to find good hitting first basemen that are better than him defensively, I have a really hard time believing the Tigers are like, you know what? The plan is still Torque going forward no matter what. That's all. The confidence of him being the first baseman of the future has plummeted, and deservedly so, unfortunately. So Torkelson being a 30 home run hitter this year, even if he doesn't take a step forward, even if he just is what he was last year again, this season is so wildly different. So that is obviously one of the biggest conversations from the first half. Let's talk second half, okay? Things that I want to see from the Tigers in the second half. Parker Meadows back and healthy. That's one of my biggest things. This team, like I said earlier, is so unbelievably different. If he is even a below league average hitter. Like he doesn't even need to have an 100 OPS plus. He doesn't even need to have an OPS in the 700s. He's a 650, a 680 OPS hitter that can run into some homers and draw some walks. He's going to be one of the more valuable players on the team, and because that's how good he is defensively. He had a batting average below 100 and was a positive WAR player at one point. I cannot undersell or oversell, rather. Somebody corrected me on that the other day on Twitter. Thank you. You cannot oversell his defense. Okay, so he's a huge factor here in the second half. I want to see him healthy and back out there. In general, injuries, right? Kerry Carpenter is something that I want to see in the second half. Now, that's more of just like up to his body and how it heals, right? That's not really anything he can do necessarily to drive that, but I would love to see Kerry Carpenter healthy again as well. He's certainly, when healthy, was part of the side of things that went right, was the best hitter on this team when he was healthy. Post-trade deadline, if you are out of it, if you're out of contention, I actually want the promise to be fulfilled of earmarking at-bats for younger players. And I think that you have an opportunity to do that for 2 whole months after the trade deadline this season. And that is a big expectation of mine. Deadline expectations are the talk of the town as we get closer and closer. Like I said, we're going to have whole episodes dedicated to the trade deadline, all the rumors that as we get closer to the deadline, potential moves, et cetera, et cetera. We will break this down so much more in depth. We're an everyday show here, okay? But I want to start the conversation now because we haven't talked about it too terribly much, and I want to kick this off. Jack Flaherty is absolutely going to be on the trade market, and I think he's going to be traded. The back injury throws a huge wrench into everything, like I said. Cody Stavenhagen and Kieran Steckley, they have a great show for The Athletic, Turning the Corner, and they talked in depth about it. Somebody pointed out to me the other day that, the whole situation with Flaherty. And I think Cody's insight there was really, really insightful. His insight was insightful, was really good in just kind of explaining and breaking down like all of the complications with this situation. The back injury really just kills the momentum on this. I still think they have to trade him. I would be shocked if they didn't, barring a run by the team. We'll talk about that in a second. But as it stands right now, I still fully expect Flaherty to get moved. And I don't think the Tigers are going to have too many reservations about that, given the injury history with the back. It's always been a thing with him, really, and how that's continued to be a thing this year. Carson Kelly, another one. You picked up a team option on him, and you might be able to actually get something for him. I think that they're going to take that value for value trade-off 10 times out of 10. I expect Carson Kelly to get moved. Anyone else, small, expiring deal, if there's a market for Mark Canha, maybe, then I guess you would try to do that. If there's a market for Gio Urshela, maybe. Again, can't imagine there's a huge market for those two guys. Can't imagine they're going to be centerpieces of deals, but I don't know, best case scenario, maybe you can try something. Anybody in the bullpen is going to be available as well. I don't think there's really anybody that's untouchable fully included into that. The big conversation, we don't have to beat around the bush anymore, is Tarik Skubal. And let's start this conversation now, and then again we'll continue it as we get closer and closer to the deadline. I am of the opinion that you should not trade Tarik Skubal. Now, there's a lot of nuance in this conversation, though. I would not go out and shop Tarik Skubal and go, we have to move this guy if we want to be good. If you are the front office of a baseball team and you have the best pitcher in baseball, another all-star young hitter, and have been around for 2 drafts now, your farm system was ranked in the borderline top 5 in baseball going into the season. It's gone down a little bit since, but at one point, and you have added next to nothing of legitimate substance or part of the long-term core, we'll say, to the major league team since taking over into, going on year 3 soon, down the road this winter. I find it really hard to believe that it would be looked at fondly if you somehow, Tarik Skubal has 2 years of control after this one. You're probably not a super, super good front office if you can't build, with everything I just laid out, a winning team around the best pitcher in baseball in 3 years' time, if we're including this year plus the next 2 years. That's probably on you and not on the organization as a front office. So that is where I stand. I think you have this guy isn't just good. He is the best pitcher in baseball. Now, the nuance to this conversation comes with the alternative, which is the quote unquote God offer, right? If you just get the most ridiculous, ludicrous, the Orioles are going to give you, they're going to give you Holiday. I almost said Ethan Holiday. They're going to give you Jackson Holiday and 5 other of their top prospects for Tarik Skubal. Then you know what? You're going to have to accept it, right? I don't believe in anyone being untouchable in trades. That's not a concept I subscribe to, right? So if you're going to get mad at my opinion there and be like, oh, well, what if? Well, yeah, if you say what if and it's good enough, then again, you kind of have to. And there are already rumors that the Dodgers and the Orioles are putting together packages for Tarik Skubal. It's going to be thrown out there. It's going to be a conversation. Where I stand is just, if it's anything less than the most you can't reject this because you would be the stupidest person ever to reject it offer, then you keep the best starting pitcher in the game of baseball and you actually build around him because you're trying to win baseball games. We will go way more in depth on that conversation as we get closer and closer to the deadline, but I did want to throw that out there. It is completely on the front office's shoulder if you take, what is this? This is year 2, and Tarik Skubal has 2 more years of control left. If you can't build an above 500 team, nonetheless a really good team, with Riley Greene and Tarik Skubal on your baseball team going forward, that's on you. That's plenty of time. And 2 years into the Scott Harris era, his biggest major league acquisition has been Matt Vierling. Major league acquisition. Okay, so that's where I stand. And that's not like anti or pro Scott Harris really in either direction. That's just the 2 paths that I see looking ahead when it comes to trade or to not to trade Tarik Skubal. Okay. Like I said, we'll talk about that a lot more. As far as anything else I'm expecting this in the second half, post deadline this year, or post All-Star break rather this year, September call-ups, would love to see Jackson Jobe. Don't really expect it, but would love to. I was expecting it going into the season, but the injury kind of threw a wrench in that a little bit. And then Jace Young, I think, kind of has to. I would be stunned if they made the same quote unquote mistake twice and didn't give Jace Young an opportunity this year and instead held him out for next year and didn't let him take his lumps this season like they didn't do with Malloy and Colt Keith. So I kind of expect Young to be up. That being said, his defense has apparently not been very good. Look, I would love to watch, and we'll end on this, I would love to watch this team go on a run. So used to saying Jace Young's name. I would love to watch this team go on a run and prove me and a lot of other people wrong. Please do. I am begging to root for a good baseball team. I am on the other side of 25 now, right? I'm in my mid-20s, and I have not seen this team go over 500 since the year that I transitioned from a freshman or a senior in high school to a freshman in college. And I'm like closer to 30 than 20. That's how long it's been. Okay. I am begging. And from a work perspective, I've been here 3 years. I have not covered a good baseball team once. I would love to. Make the second half of the summer fun. But my expectations are lower at this point. If I was to redo my expectations that I had going into opening day, they would not be 84 wins. I fully expect them to trade Flaherty. I expect them to trade Carson Kelly and any other veteran of expiring deals that have remote value and look towards the winter. And if my expectations of what this team are and what I think this team is are accurate, which is not a playoff team, then I think that it's the right thing to do, to trade players as well. That all being said, win. Please win. Make the deadline uncomfortable, like we talked about yesterday. Make me eat my words. Just win. Keep winning. Make the trade deadline, make that spicy. I want the Tigers to go into the deadline and me to be legitimately nervous about stating my opinion of the deadline, because I'm afraid that people are going to be like, oh, well, like how could you say that? I want them to buy and like go on a run and win. We've been winning a lot lately, or vice versa, right? Like, I want to make it as uncomfortable for this front office as humanly possible. And the only way that happens is to just win, baby. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. Back-to-back longer episodes. I apologize. We'll try to get back closer to 30 here tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow talking about the rest of the draft and previewing the weekend series ahead. All righty. Well, actually, we'll do that Friday. So we still have a couple of days. We'll be good. We'll have plenty of content here. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.